This is the Business Experience Show, where we connect those who want to know more about digital marketing, social media, and business strategy with entrepreneurs who are succeeding in today's marketplace. Follow our blog, join our online network, or connect with us at thebusinessexperienceshow.com. And now, your host, Lisa Caprelli.
Hi, I'm Lisa Caprelli. Also here with me is Brian Gapps. Michael Helms has been photographing the beautiful people of Southern California for the past 37 years. During that time, he has helped numerous professionals achieve just the right look. He also happens to be my favorite photographer on the planet. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Michael. How did you get started in the photography business?
Well, 37 years ago, I was actually working in photo labs around the city, and then a guy came in who owned a modeling agency and asked me to shoot some photos for his models, and business just grew out of that. So got my start shooting fashion, and then moved into shooting more actors and models and celebrities and stuff like that.
What would you say is the difference between you and other photographers, Michael?
I'm cuter.
Yes,
no.
You are. You're adorable.
No, I would say, seriously, I would say lighting is the main thing because that's the thing I focus on the most. I think lighting is the most critical part of photography, and I light people according to their face and their face structure and shape, and also according to what sort of image they need, as opposed to having a certain lighting set up and everybody gets lit that particular way.
And by image that they need, you mean, you said you've talked to them about the demographics of their audience for these photos.
Very much so. Like if a guy comes in and he plays a lot of bad guy roles, I don't put like a beauty light on him, whereas if a lovely woman comes in, I don't want to light her all dark and shadowy so that she looks like a character actress. Besides, that shows wrinkles, and they don't like that.
We don't like wrinkles ever.
No. Wrinkles bad.
You also light and shoot according to the audience or purpose, it's like you said.
Yes, absolutely. I have to think of the demographic. Like, again, for instance, if it's a guy who does a lot of bad guy roles, he has to think in terms of what his market is. Mm-hmm. If a woman comes in and she could play parts as a mom, then it doesn't do any good for her to light her in a super beautiful way because then she'll go up against models and not get the work.
You're in Los Angeles, so you get a lot of the Hollywood business. And who would book you typically? Does the agent contact you, or is it the talent themselves, or is it a combination? How does that work?
Yes, it's a combination. I've been around so long now that all the agents in town have lists of photographers, and by law, they have to refer their actors to a list and say, these are the photographers that we like and trust. And then from that list, the actors or models or whoever can pick the photographer, and what they do is either go online or hopefully they'll go visit the photographer and look at a portfolio. But I would say the larger percentage of my work after being in business all these years comes from word of mouth.
And so I imagine sometimes there's a conflict between the talent and the agent sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, I had a girl that came in and she brought me pictures and said, "Well, I want photos like this," and they were pictures of all these beautiful fashion models, and she, to say it delicately, was not a fashion model. Okay. She would look good in one of those prairie movies,
yes.
The Farmer's Wife. And so, like you said, there's a conflict, because if I shoot what the agent likes, she's not going to be happy. If I shoot what she likes, the agent's not going to be happy. So what I did was said, well, let's show the agent how diverse you can be as an actress. And so I had her shoot some stuff that was more plain and more appropriate actually for her, and then I did some really pretty pictures of her too, so that she'd be happy. And of course there was a conflict when she took them to the agent, but then that's up to them. So
did you know that was going to be part of the job when you got into the business, this whole relationship management?
Yeah, I did, because before I actually started shooting on my own, I was working in a photo lab, and I saw a lot of models come in, and and also a lot of agents and a lot of photographers. And there was always, no matter what kind of photography you do, there's always going to be conflict between what the client wants, maybe perhaps what an art director wants, what a model wants. Everybody has an idea of what they need and how to approach that.
So what has the digital age of photography done for photographers? You've been photographing for 37 years now. Your work is impeccable. I've seen it. I've actually been a subject matter of yours, very impressed. And when I see the result of your photography and being biased, it's wow. There's no one that can compare. So how do you set yourself apart so someone knows that you are an expert photographer, not just someone who picked up the camera for a hobby?
That's a really good question, and it's very difficult because with the advent of the whole digital age, I used to have 10 to 20 people a week come into my studio to meet me, to look at my portfolio, and they were doing that's how people decided who they would shoot with. Right. They would go to different photographer studios, meet them, look at their books, and then make their decision based on that. Nowadays, people just sit at home and go online and they look through websites, and the problem with that is that they don't meet the photographer. They don't see the surroundings, where they're going to be shot and how they're going to be shot. So the digital age has brought the good news is that it's brought photography to everyone, even the layman. The bad news is that everybody thinks they're a photographer now. So it's brought some challenges. It's basically a new paradigm for the business model. Right, of photography.
And Google doesn't bring the best photographers to the top. It's the best websites. It's the most optimized.
Well, it's the most optimized, yeah. And so, I've had to shift my emphasis from meeting people and having a really great portfolio, which I maintain, but I've had to shift that to a website and to having the right SEO people, hiring the right SEO people to optimize my website so it shows up higher on the
Well, I'm happy
rankings.
that you are staying current so people can find you. MichaelHelms.com. There are people who say, oh, that picture is Photoshopped. What is your feedback to that?
Yeah, people have a lot of feelings about Photoshop, and to me, it's another tool. It's like a lens. It's like a camera. It's like choosing an f-stop or a shutter speed. It's just another tool. And what I always say about it is every photo should be Photoshopped. It's a bad idea to not Photoshop an image. It's a way worse idea to overdo it.
Right.
And that's what happens mostly is, Photoshop gets a bad rap because people overdo it.
You told us that some clients forget that photos are not about reality, they're about projection.
They are. And, especially for actors, they're about an image. They're not about a reality. If you want reality, there's people that they might have a blemish on their face or a line or a wrinkle that doesn't need to be there. It doesn't serve their marketability. So that's why that kind of thing, you take it out. But if you take if a guy is a character actor and you take all his wrinkles out, you basically are ruining his career. So, yeah, don't want to overdo it.
And we're talking about actors because those are some of the fun stories, but you also shoot a fair amount of corporate and professional headshots.
I do quite a bit.
And I see people use the same headshot for nearly all of their online links. And I would think that the importance of social media and professional links these days, a professional or a business headshot would be as important as ever.
And yeah, quite a bit. And a lot of, if you look at a lot of corporate headshots, they're not aware of their demographic. They're not aware of their marketability, and how to market themselves appropriately. And that's sad. You'll see, the head of large corporations with some silly shot that their son did on their iPhone or something.
Right.
Michael, share with us, you've worked with thousands of people. I know many celebrities, and like Brian says, it's fun to hear about some of them that you work with. Can you give us a story of someone that you helped, maybe before he got famous and your photography helped boost his career?
Well, there's, that's a good one. There's a guy named Bill Oberst who who came in, and super, super nice guy. But when he walked in, I kind of giggled, and I was saying, this guy would make a great serial killer. He was just kind of raggy and super guy, and very, very bright, and a very talented actor. And toward the end of our session, I said to him that exact thing. I said, you'd make a great serial killer, so let's put you in a wife beater and mess up your hair, and then back to the lighting thing, and I lit him very shadowy and slightly from underneath to make him scary looking, and his career just took off. And
you had that idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody who walks through my doors, I have an idea of how to market them. It doesn't always fit in how they want to be or how their agent sees them, but...
Okay, and you have to tell our listeners the Jonathan Goldsmith story.
Oh, the most interesting man in the world. Yeah, his agent called me and said his career wasn't moving as quickly as she would like it to, and asked if I could do a photo of him. And so he came in, and I was just kind of looking at his facial structure, and I thought, well, let's do a little bit of basically what they call Rembrandt light. There's a lot of shadow on his face, and so I shot that, and then he booked the most interesting man in the world, that Dos Equis campaign.
Wow, the most
amazing.
Interesting man in the world. And I know you also give workshops to photographers who are trying to learn from your craft. What are some struggles they have?
I would say the number one struggle for new photographers is learning to see the light. Because you can teach f-stops and shutter speeds, you can teach rule of thirds, you can teach what lenses to use, all that fairly quickly and easily. But seeing light is often the stumbling block.
How do you teach them to see light?
Well, actually, they either do or they don't. I mean, I've set my camera up for and working photographers. I've set my camera up and my lens and everything, and had a model sitting there and said, "This is what I would shoot. So here, shoot this," and watched them mess it up just because the timing wasn't right. The model is sitting there and she's ready, and then her eyes get all glassy and glazed over because he's not shooting at the proper moment. And then I hear the shutter go off, and I'm going, "Dude, the shot was like 3 seconds ago. You blew it." So.
But you also don't seem to fuss with lights all that long. I mean, you set it and go. I've seen lighting directors that really change and like you talked about, over photoshopping. I see people over lighting, and you don't seem to do that either. You just have it, you set it, and you go.
Right. Well, you have to know what you're doing, get it set up, and even, I mean, a lot of times if I'm not quite sure of the setup, I'll have it all set up and shoot a test shot ahead of time, and then the person who I'm shooting can come in and sit down and just go bang, bang, bang without having to sit there. Because if a model or an actor or whatever corporate person is sitting there waiting for you to test, you're behind already. You're blowing it.
And you also said something interesting to me, that you said most photographers have a particular lighting style, and everyone they shoot tends to get lit that way. And I know what you're talking about with that.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. If you just even casually look at websites of photographers, and you pay attention to the shadows and the lighting and how it's done, you'll see man, woman, old person, young person. Everybody's just lit the same, and that's just, it's just lazy to me. That's a lazy thing to do. I would be just so bored I would have to shoot myself in the face. I have to do.
And so that's a good tip for our listeners to look for if they're shopping for a photographer, to look for those things.
Well, if someone's shopping for a photographer, I would say look to make sure the lighting's not all the same. And I actually have a list of questions on my blog that people can go through and actually ask photographers.
Yes. So and your blog is on michaelhelms.com. When I asked you, Michael, what does hard work mean to you? I love that you said this. My work is usually not physically hard, but it can be psychologically draining because people often feel self-conscious in front of a camera. Cameras bring out people's insecurities and neuroses, so I have to be aware of that. So I can feel pretty drained after spending time with some folks, and after they're gone, I have the business of my business to run. So I put in some long hours. 12 to 16-hour days are not uncommon. That's amazing. I mean, who would think that about a photographer?
Yeah, well, very little of my time is spent actually pushing the button. Yeah.
Last words for our audience, Michael.
Go to michaelhelms.com.
Go to michaelhelms.com. I love seeing you go. I love seeing you use you're like an artist using Photoshop when you're doing work. So if you're out there listening and you need headshots, you're a corporate, you want to take business photos, if you're an actress, model, or you want to just see what it's like to feel like a model, go to michaelhelms.com.
Yeah.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for being with us.
Thank you, Lisa.
We got to take a quick break. For more information about the wonderful photographer Michael Helms, go directly to michaelhelms.com. You can also follow his story. You can find our blog and internet feed iTunes on thebusinessexperienceshow.com. You're listening to The Business Experience Show on Sports Radio AM 830 KLAA. We'll be right back.
Sports Radio A.